I'm doing a little something different with this video. It's going to be probably the longest or one of the longer form videos that I've done for Versed Well. I'm not even going to add captions. It's just me talking to the camera. But what I want to do today is share a story that I wrote, a short story, when I was probably about 11 years old. It's called Mary's Tragedies. I made a title page for it and everything. My mom kept a folder with some of my writings from that period. This isn't dated, but some of the other stories in there were dated about 1997, which is when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And I perused this story. I really don't recall writing it, to be honest. It's kind of coming back to me since I've read a little bit of it. But I was using words in there like I couldn't believe that. It was hard for me to believe that somebody that young would write something like this. And then to think that it was me. But yeah, I used to write when I was a kid. I loved it. And starting at about 15, 16, I started partying, doing drugs, drinking, and stopped. I wrote a little bit here and there, but not much. And then in about 2020, with the lockdown, is when it really came back. When I started, I like sat down and really got back at it. Now I have a Substack and I write all day long in my journal and in my planner. So I'm back, baby. But this is a story. I'm going to read it as is. Keep in mind the grammar, spelling, even the words I use may not be correct because I was, 10 or 11 years old when I wrote it. And I wrote it on a typewriter, if you can believe that. But I plan on rewriting it. That's something that I want to do is like write it now as a almost 40-year-old man. So, and another thing is since I've perused it, I know now where my dream of living in the country with a family, with a wife and kids, and just being an author and living out in the cut, or, pretty out in the cut. Doesn't have to be out in the middle of nowhere, but somewhere with a lot of space. I know where this dream came from, and it's wild. You'll see when I read the story, but I wrote it in the first person as if I were a country woman, a woman that lives in the countryside back in I guess the 1800s. You'll see what I mean. But here we go. Mary's Tragedies by Aaron O'Shea. With my husband off to war and me having to look after two children, life is pretty hard sometimes. My two little boys, Hunter and James, help all around the farm with chores and everything. I just worry sometimes about Joe, my husband. With him fighting those Indians out there, well, it just worries me. But I shouldn't worry about bad things all the time. With my two boys here, I'm not lonely. Every night we sit by the fire and tell stories, fiction or just tell each other about war days. When I let them stay up real late some nights, I'm giving them a real treat, they say. They play tag in the dark and run around in the field. It makes me smile when I think how grown up they have gotten. But it hurts me when I think of of how they will leave with their beautiful wives and start a life all their own. But I should enjoy it while it lasts. Mary Edwards am an author. Me, Mary Edwards, am an author. I write books about history and even make theories about the future. I believe that one day we will carriages, but these carriages will be different. They will move without a horse to pull it. But it is only a dream. I also write about my life and my family. I love writing stories about those kinds of things. But I keep all my stories away from my family. Those stories have my personal beliefs about the future of my family and their success, their skills, and their unique style of how they do certain things, especially eating. I keep my stories in a secret closet in my room. They don't even know I write stories. I dream of becoming an author, and a good one too. I am very skilled in spelling, reading, and English. I hope my children become good students too. I hope they become as successful as me. Today, me and my children will go down to the lake and catch fish for dinner. So we loaded up our wagon and went down to the lake. When we got there, we unloaded and started to fish. James brought a book of different fish with him to, to identify each fish we catch. Hunter got a really big fish. He struggled with it for at least an hour. When he finally got the gigantic fish, James said it was a grouper. It looked really good too. We got 2 more fish, then went home to eat dinner. The fish was great. Everyone was full after the helping of fish. We got to bed early that night, but for some reason I could not sleep. I got up to look under the stars. As I laid down on the somewhat moist ground, I felt a terrible sensation. Things rushed in my mind as quick as lightning. I felt all sorts of sensations rushing through my body, straight to my brain. I had a real bad feeling about Joe. It was like I could see the future or something like that. I had the worst feeling. I felt that he had just died. He had gotten shot by an Indian with an arrow. I also felt that Hunter, my oldest son, would become very ill, and that the farm will have a famine, and we would lose all our crops. We would lose money due to the rent and will starve. I just hope all of those things were not true. I had finally gone to sleep under the stars. And as a little side note, kind of morbid for a 10-year-old. But it is also interesting that she's talking about being an author, which is a dream of mine. You know, I always wanted to be a writer. All right, back to it. The day after that, the boys had to wake me for I was sleeping in far too much and too awake to do chores. But when I awoke, I saw the sky and how gray it looked. It sure didn't seem pleasant. I predicted that a big storm was coming, and sure enough, I was right. There was thunder and lightning and rain coming down really hard. The storm lasted for hours. When it started to clear up, we went outside. If had stopped completely. It had, and the boys had fun swimming in the little pond we had in the back of our house. They always do it after it rains, so it is really cold due to the rain. Rain spelled R-I-A-N. The boys had swam for hours. They played in the water and splashed each other and had loads of fun. It was wonderful. I wish I could be younger again. My childhood was a blast. Me and my girlfriends used to play games and even played with the boys sometimes. That is how I met my husband. I was around the age of 17. I met him after school while me and the girls were playing down by the river. They came to join us, and within 2 seconds, I fell deeply in love with Joe. He seemed charming and handsome, like me. I could see it in his eyes that he liked me too. We started seeing each other a lot. After a couple of years, we decided to get married and have a family on our own. We got married and rented a small cabin, our house, from an old farmer named Tom. And side note, Tom is my dad's name. I like to use names of people in my family or friends in my writing, and that's actually something that I still remember my dad told me to do when I was really young, and he knew I liked writing. That was his suggestion, so that one's for you, Pops. All right, back to it. It was pretty good considering it was far away from all kinds of noise and distractions the city had to offer. We paid the rent by getting jobs ourselves. We went to the city to find jobs. We were skilled in many of the jobs we applied for, but did not seem interested, except one job. I found the job of being an author seemed interesting. So I became an author and wrote a book about my life and my past experiences and took it to a publishing company. They thought the story had no spice to it. They thought autobiographies were boring and wanted adventure and suspense. When they rejected my story, I felt really down. I did not show anyone my stories from then on for fear of failure. But I have written many stories about myself and even my thought about future events. But I just don't think people will take me seriously. But anyway, back to Joe getting a job. He had looked at all the businesses and stuff. And stuff, Aaron, you shouldn't write that. but could never find a job he enjoyed. But on his last attempt to get a job, he went to a building that seemed quite small, but seemed like it had lots of business. He went in to apply for the job of a store clerk. The pay seemed fair, but he enjoyed the job very much because the store was a bookstore. He loved reading, been doing it since he was a little one. He sat at his desk all day and read any book he could get a hold of. He was very nice to all his customers, and they never had any complaints. He enjoyed his job so much, he took the shift that started at 7 a.m. and ended at 8. He brought home books for me all the time, and after we earned enough money for everything in the house, we had our first son, Hunter. We had started a life without any help from anybody, and we were happy. Without any help from anybody. This is so wild reading. I have a lot of trouble asking for help. And some of the things that are coming through years later, it's just, this is something else. This is very cathartic for me. Let's see, we're at about 11 minutes now. I think what I'm going to do is split this up because this is a pretty long story. So there's like chapters. Look, check it out. I even wrote, can you see it? Chapter 2 up there. So I'm going to split it into different videos. This will be chapter 1, but hold off for chapter 2 of Mary's Tragedies.